Hey everyone, George here, and welcome back to Aquatic Concepts. Today we are going to be talking about the top 5 bulletproof fish for beginners, and we're also going to talk a little bit about setting up an aquarium, some of the basic things that you need to do if you're a beginner. So today we're going to be talking about that. When we come back, we're going to get right to it. Hang in there with me. So as I said in my intro, we're going to be talking about my top 5 what I call bulletproof fish that I think anybody who's a beginner is going to have some success with. And we're also going to talk a little bit about setting up an aquarium for your very first time. If you've never had an aquarium before, it's going to be kind of intimidating to you, and it's also going to be a little bit deceptive because you're going to think, you're just going to add some water to this thing, some gravel in there, and you're going to throw some fish in there. And that's not at all how this is going to go. And if you think that's the way it's going to go, then you probably shouldn't be doing this. And if you really want to have a good experience, and you did buy this aquarium intentionally, either for your family, or you're setting it up in your home office, or you're setting it up in a office outside of your home, then if you follow me through this video, when we're done here, you're going to have some basic ideas how to prevent yourself from having some terrible pitfalls on setting up an aquarium that is going to cause you a lot of anxiety and frustration, because you're just going to be killing fish left and right if you don't know the basics. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what I think is a dangerous time of year, because let's just give a scenario here. You're taking the dog in for some grooming, and you've got the kids with you, and all of these big box stores such as Petco or PetSmart or whatever have all these amazing sales on all-in-one aquarium kits that has caught the eye of your children. Usually they're right at eye level for your kids. Of course, the fish are there, the kids are looking at those, and they're going, "Mom, Dad, I really want an aquarium," and you cave. And you're not going to be the first one that's done that. You're not going to be the last one that's done that, but you are going to, if you watch this video, you're going to have an upper hand on how you're going to deal with that, and how you're going to make this experience something that is positive for both you and your kids. Or if it's just for you, I'm going to save you a lot of heartaches here, because I'm going to tell you some of the basics on how to get an aquarium going and what you need to do to be successful. And the number one thing that you have to have with every aquarium is patience. And that is the number one thing on our list today that we're going to talk about, because that is the most important thing. As we go through this scenario, we're going to be talking about that a little bit here. We're going to talk about why patience is so important when you're setting up an aquarium. And we're going to talk about the 5 basic fish that I think that anyone can pretty much do. And if you have some problems, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to do it. Now, we want to have some success with the aquarium right off the bat. We don't want to have problems where we're losing fish. And as I said, that's going to require some patience on your part. So when we come back, we're going to talk about a basic setup and what you need to do to get that tank rolling and going and make it a positive experience for not only you, but if your kids are involved in this, but for your kids as well. Because we want to teach our kids that if we're going to have a hobby like this, that we need to do it correctly, and we need to have some patience. So patience comes from you, and that's passed on down to those kids. And I hope that when we come back, I can talk to you through a little bit of some of the basics here to get you going on a nice little setup. We'll, like I said, talk about those 5 fish that I think are really going to be something that even if you're a little challenged in this area, you're going to have some success at. So So when we come back, we're going to talk about that. Hang in there with me, and we'll be right back. So as I said before the break here, we were going to talk about a setup that was pretty basic, and basically what we have here is an aqua top, and this is the Pisces series. This is I think one of my favorites because I think it offers one of the best opportunities to have a all-in-one system that is built in, that just hangs on the back of this. You have your ceramic matter down here. You have whatever kind of carbon filtration you want to add to this, as well as some sponge material in here. And also in behind, when you pull this top off here, there is going to be a spot for you to put a small, what I call a preset type heater that is going to heat this. Basically, this 5 gallons is going to be heated up to about 78 degrees, which is, for most fish, is going to be okay. And that little guy sits right down in this little area down in here perfectly. I've researched these heaters quite a bit, and these are perfect little setups for your heater to go in there. And you can do this as an all-in-one and have this all just setting in there. And as I said, it's pretty much ready to go at this point. Of course, there would be a spout that comes out of here. I'm not going to set up the pump in here, but there is a chamber right along this area here where your pump would go inside here, and there would be a spout where the water would be coming out of here. So this is a basic setup. This is not something that's really challenging. It even comes with a nice little top that can go on here. It's got these little 4 areas where you can clip them on the ends here and hold this piece of glass in, and then you've got a nice little area right here where you can feed your fish from. So it's really a nice little setup. I have a bunch of these that I use not only for nano-sized tanks, and that's what this would be considered. If those of you who are not experienced with aquariums, this is what we call a nano-sized aquarium, and this is going to have some limitations to it. Obviously, this is not something that you're going to put large fish in, angelfish and some of those kinds of things. Now this is, like I said, a 5 gallon. As I talked about in the video, the most common sold are 5, 10, and 20 gallons cubes, or different shaped aquariums. But basically, most of them have an all-in-one feature with them. If they don't, be sure to look for that, because that's going to be the easiest thing that you can possibly set up. Now, as I said, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but let's go over this. You have a light here that has the basics. It's got the blue light and the white light, and then in the evening you can set this to have just a small amount of blue light, and you can put it on a timer, which I think this is fantastic. You can buy one of these, you can plug it in, and you can, everything that goes to your aquarium can go in here, and you can also have a timer so that this light right up here can come off and on at different times of the day. You can actually set it up to go off halfway through the day, come back on. You can set up several different scenarios and be a little more sophisticated about how you're doing this, but this is a fantastic idea, and it's a cheap little way of getting your lights to come on in the morning, and you don't have to do it yourself. Now, when we're talking about getting this set up, you're going to put some gravel in here. You're going to find some stones of some kind. That's all up to you on how you want to decorate it. If you want to get some plants that are easy, there are many plants that do not need to be rooted into the soil. There are many that can be just put into the rocks, and so forth. But the most important thing that I want you to understand is that you need to have patience in setting this up. Let's say you've got all your rock in here, your gravel, you've got some plants in here, and you're ready to start filling this with water. Now, the temptation would be to fill this with water and 2-3 days later say, you know, I think it's probably time for me to stick some fish in here. It is absolutely not time for you to put some fish in here. The very first thing that you need to do is, number one, have a product like this. You don't need near as big a bottle as I have right here, but Stability is used for a rapid and safe establishment of your biofilter. And the biofilter, if you don't understand what that is basically what is going to take your ammonia, turn it into nitrites, which are going to turn it into nitrates, and you're going to have a system. It's called the nitrogen cycle that you're going to go through. Now, Stability is going to help that along. So what you're going to do for the first 7 days, as you have your heater going in here and your lights going on and everything's in the tank, you're going to follow the instructions on the back here, and it's going to tell you how much you're going to use every 7 days, or every day for 7 days, excuse me, and you're going to take about this much water out every day and replace it along with however much of this you need. Now, if you want to go even faster on your cycle, you're going to do something like this. You're going to do what they call a quick start. This has some active beneficial bacteria that's in here that is going to be very helpful for you to get this set up and well established. And let me put this over here where you can see it a little bit better. But this is made by API and it's called Quickstart. Stability is made by Seachem. Both great products. Both have different different ways in which they're used. Now, it does what they call preventing new tank syndrome. In other words, you could add fish in 7 days if you wanted to, if you follow the instructions on this, and you can have a fairly reasonable cycle going in your tank. But that is the trap here. You don't want to put any fish in this tank until this cycle is completed. Now, again, this is going to help you a little bit more too. What I like to do is take both of these products for the first 7 days, take the water down about 1/4 and remove it from the tank, and then add these two products in when you're adding the new water back in. Try to make the temperature of the water equal to what it is in your tank. Get it as close to that as you can. And again, we have no fish in the tank at this point here, and that's going to take about 3 weeks for this tank to cycle completely. So I hope that I've helped you a little bit here. Now, one of the things that I did want to mention, if you run into some problems, you've got some, your cycle is completed and you've got some problems with your fish, what you're going to do is you're going to remove the carbon out of here, because any carbon that you have in there is going to take anything out of the tank that you're adding in there as far as medications and so forth. Now, this is a medication that is going to be the most commonly used to get rid of protozoan and parasites, anaerobic bacterial diseases, all kinds of different things. There's also several other types of medication like Canaplex, which is going to deal with fungal issues or things like that. These are the most common things that you're going to see when you first set up an aquarium. And this is also going to get rid of worms. A lot of fish come in with a bad case of worms, and they get thin and don't do very well no matter how much you're feeding them and they're eating. They just seem to waste away, and that's because those fish may have some kind of internal parasite that is creating a problem for them. Now, we have internal parasites, we have external parasites. So be careful when you're buying medications to make sure you're buying it for the right reasons. Talk to somebody at a mom and pop store. Don't talk to somebody at a big box store about all these things, because the bottom line is they're not going to have the knowledge that somebody's going to have at one of these mom and pop stores. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the 5 fish that I think are going to be best suited to put into a tank this size a 10-gallon tank or a 20-gallon tank, and we're going to be very specific about that when we come back. Hang in there with me, and we'll be right back. So we have basically gone through a small setup on a 5-gallon Aquatop Pisces series tank. This is really just a beginner tank, and it really is considered what I call a nano style tank. So most of the fish that we're going to be talking about here are not going to be something that you want to put in a tank that small. If you are looking at fish for that, what you want to do is research nano type fish and find out what you can safely put in a 5-gallon and make a nice ecosystem out of it. And the fish that I'm going to be talking about next really do not fit that description, but I wanted to use a small tank like that to give you an idea up close on how you would put that tank together, and give you some ideas about being patient and the things that you need to do every day before you start adding fish to your tank, because the worst thing you can do is start adding fish to your tank right away. Now, one of the first fish that I want to talk about that I think is an absolute perfect fish for any tank that is around 20 gallons, and that is Danios. Danios are an amazingly hardy fish, but they're extremely energetic and they're almost bulletproof. I mean, if you're killing Danios, then you've got a real serious problem on your hand with a tank that is nowhere near cycled. And I have seen Danios live in a situation where I was cleaning a tank out to get it ready for a new build, and I found 1 or 2 Danios living in the bottom of it in the gravel that I missed, and they were still alive within a day or two of just having maybe this much water in there. Now, that wasn't intentional, obviously, but I'm saying these fish are extremely bulletproof and they're very, very easy to care for. Of course, we want to take care of all our fish, the best that we possibly can, and Danios are no exception, but they are very energetic. They're very high-strung fish, so you want to have at least a 20-gallon for something like that, because they're going to need that room and they're going to be moving all over that tank constantly. So if you're looking for a fish that is going to be calm and relaxing, that is not the fish for you. But if you're looking for something that's very lively and is going to be out and about and you're going to see them all the time, this is a great fish for you. Now, the next fish would be Tetras. Tetras are so common and there's so many varieties of them. And again, they're very, very hardy. Now, there are some exceptions to that. A lot of people will go out and they'll buy, because they're beautiful, they'll buy the neontetras, they'll buy cardinal tetras, they'll buy fish like that. And if you're doing that in an unestablished tank, and I'm talking about a tank that has not really truly been cycled correctly, you're going to lose these fish really quick. But if you are doing everything right, these fish are going to be extremely hardy. And again, I would not put them in a 5-gallon. I would be, in fact, all of the fish that I'm talking about from here on out, I would suggest in a 10 to 20 gallon scenario, because these fish are going to need that room. These fish are schoolers, and they're going to be schoolers or shoalers, one or the other. Schoolers means that they all move together in synchronization, or shoalers means that they move together as a group and they're kind of a little bit loose in their schooling. But they're all fish that are going to hang out with each other in a group. And tetras are a fantastic fish. There's so many different varieties. Be careful about the size of your tank, because there are tetras such as these, which are Buenos Aires tetras, and they are going to get rather big. Now, if you're buying neons and cardinal tetras, they're not going to get that large, and you can probably keep them in a 20-gallon tank for the life of the fish. Now, another fish that I want to talk about that I think is an amazing fish for starters and great for kids to watch are Platies. Platies are really, really, really hardy fish, and again, They don't need a lot of care. They just need a well-cycled tank. All of these fish need a well-cycled tank. So this is where I want to keep going back and talking about making sure your nitrogen cycle is complete and that your fish are ready to be put into the tank. And Platies are great because they're prolific breeders and they're live breeders. They're going to give birth into the tank, and it's kind of fun for your kids to see this. And I know that when my kids were young and I was in the hobby originally, I bought these kinds of fish and I did my research on it. I made sure I knew exactly what I was getting into. Did I not make any mistakes at all? Yes, I did. Of course I did. Everybody's going to make some mistakes, but that's basically how we learn. But I'm trying to minimize how many mistakes you make when you get that first aquarium. Again, Platies, 10 to 20 gallons are perfect for them. I would like to see these fish in a 20 gallon, to be honest with you, because this gives them a lot of room. If they are breeding, you're going to see babies just show up in your tank. You're going to see your fish get really fat. You're going to be able to tell which ones are the females right away, and you're going to see these fish all of a sudden in your tank. And many of them are going to get eaten by the other fish in the tank because they're very tiny, and if you are not paying attention and don't get a breeder box of some kind, you're going to lose these fish to just an expensive lunch for some of the other fish in your tank. Now the next fish on my list is Swordtails, very much like Platies. In fact, they look a lot alike. They have very similar shaped mouths, and again, very prolific breeders. You're going to have no problem breeding these fish in a tank. Great experience, as I said, for your kids. Again, a tank that's between 10 and 20 gallons. Again, I would prefer that they be in a 20 gallon. I've done this in a 10 gallon and it's worked out okay, but I'm being honest with you. You want to have a very small population of these if you're going to do them in a 10, and try to do them in a 20 gallon where you've got some room and they've got the ability to have some space to breed and to also take care of their babies when they have them. Now, the last one on my list are catfish, and these are fish that are definitely going to be amazing for your tank because they're part of this ultimate cleanup crew that you're going to need to make sure that your tank is in good shape all the time. And that happens after the nitrogen cycle, after your tank has been balanced and is running smoothly. Water changes are being done once a week, a quarter water change. I would do that twice a week for the first 3 or 4 months, just even after your tank is cycled, just to make sure that you are getting through these problems with diatom algae and other kinds of algae that can crop up into a tank. Most tanks that have algae are caused by tanks that are not cleaned very often and have an ability to establish these algae that either have the worst kind of atmosphere inside them. The tanks are dirty all the time, or it can be a lighting issue too. You can have too much light or not enough light, and you can take care of that by making sure you read about the kinds of atmosphere that these fish need to be in, and of course any other life that's in your tank, such as plants, snails, shrimp, whatever you might have going. Make sure you research all of these things before you add any of these to your tanks to make sure that they're compatible with each other. And that was something I would say about all of these fish that I've talked about, is make sure about their compatibility if you're adding them in with others. Now, when I talk about catfish, which is our number 5 fish, and that would be Corydoras, which are fantastic cleanup crews. They go along the bottom, they're like little vacuum cleaners, and they're sucking up every bit of extra food that your fish are not eating, and they're wonderful for that. I like to see fish that wander the bottom of the tank, and I like to see fish that are part of a cleanup crew, such as Siamese algae eaters, autosynclus, any of those kinds of fish. Also plecos All of these are going to eat algae. They're going to be part of that cleanup crew that we talked about, and they're going to benefit your tank along with snails, which are very slow moving, but you'd be surprised how much a snail can eat as far as algae goes, and do a fantastic job. Mono shrimp are fantastic for keeping algae down in your tank as well. These are the kinds of issues that you're probably going to run into when you're putting a new tank together. Now, this video has gone longer than I wanted to, but I really wanted to, around Christmas time, talk to people who are probably going to be seeing tanks show up in their homes, or you're going to be thinking about buying them for your children. Make sure you know what you're getting into, and make sure you know that there's some work involved here, and above all, make sure you understand that if you don't have patience, then this is probably not for you, but you can really, really enjoy this hobby if you've got a little bit of patience, and you have a little bit of understanding, and you've watched this video right to the end, and you followed my instructions. You're going to have some success here, and you're really going to enjoy having this new biosystem or ecosystem in your house that is going to be fantastic for you and your kids. Or if it's just for you, you'll be surprised how quickly, if you've had some success, you're going to be moving on to bigger and greater fish. And as we go along here, I'll follow up on this video to check in with you to see how you're doing with your tanks. But thank you for joining me today. Leave your comments down below. Give me a thumbs up on this video if you liked it. And also subscribe to the channel. Our channel is building, and it's been a lot of fun. We're growing all the time, and we're getting some new companies out there that really want to jump on board with giving us some products that they want us to show on the channel, and that's going to be exciting here in the next few months that are coming up here. But like I said, leave your comments down below. Up here there's a bell. Every time we have a new video, I put out a video maybe once to 2 times a week. That bell is going to be something that will alert you to a new video that comes out, so you can see it immediately when it comes out and I've uploaded it. And like I said, there's all kinds of interesting topics. You can go back. I've got over 100 and something videos that I've made here, so you can look through my catalog or library of videos, and pretty much anything you're looking for, you're going to find. Thank you for joining me today. Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating this time of year. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it, and we will see you on the next one. Until then, we are out of here.